The day of the hearing, I showed up armed with folders of evidence and a heart pounding like a war drum. Kerren was there too, strutting into the room like she owned the place, her smirk practically tattooed on her face. She wasn't smirking for long. As I laid out the timeline, the receipts, the testimonies, the room shifted. Even the board members began to frown. When I presented the clause, the one that required board approval for any fines, they asked Kerren for documentation. She had none. Silence. The smirk cracked. The board declared every fine invalid. Every single one. They ruled that Kerren had overstepped her authority, and what's more, they launched an investigation into her entire tenure as HOA chair. But it didn't stop there. Turns out, misusing HOA funds and violating homeowners' rights has consequences. Big ones? By the end of that month, Kerren was not only removed from her position, she was personally fined for abuse of power and ordered to refund every homeowner she had penalized unfairly. People who had stayed quiet out of fear began speaking out. For the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like a community again. Lawns grew a little wilder. Fences stayed bright and colorful. Someone even put up a 10-foot inflatable dinosaur just to celebrate. And me? I hung my curtains back up, with pride. Same color. Same pattern. Same window. But this time, they stood for something more than fabric. They were a symbol. A victory. A reminder that sometimes, even in the most rigid, rule-bound places, standing your ground is worth every fight. Kerren thought she could break people with paper fines and fake authority. But she forgot the most important rule of all. Never underestimate someone who's got nothing left to lose, and everything to protect. I explained my situation calmly. Asked if there was any room for compromise. She chuckled, not the sweet kind, but the condescending kind that gets under your skin like a splinter. Rules are rules, she said, every word smug. We all make sacrifices for the good of the community. Sacrifices? It was curtains. Not nuclear waste. I pushed back. Don't you think $10,000 is a little extreme for something like this? She snorted. If you didn't want to follow the rules, maybe you shouldn't have moved here. That's when I realized, this wasn't about rules for her. This was a game. A power trip. She thrived on control and fear. Every warning letter, every fine, it was fuel for her ego. I hung up, fists clenched. I wasn't going to let her win. If she wanted a fight, she'd get one. But going up against the HOA was like battling a multi-headed monster. They had legal teams. Funding. A handbook written in vague, punishing language. And Kerren? She thought she was untouchable. Then, something unexpected happened. Neighbors began to come forward. One by one. Quietly. Hesitantly. There was Mr. Grayson, fined because his grass turned yellow during a drought. Aesthetically negligent, they called it. The Petersons, forced to repaint their fence because the color wasn't neutral enough for Kerren's taste. An elderly couple down the street, slapped with a $5,000 fine because their garden gnome was too whimsical. It wasn't just me. Kerren had built a reign of terror, cloaked in bylaws and fine print. People were terrified. Afraid to speak out. Afraid of losing their savings, their homes, their peace. But Kerren had made a mistake. She underestimated me. Every fine, every letter, every smug grin fueled me. I wasn't just fighting for my curtains anymore. I was fighting for everyone who had suffered under her fake crown. And what happened next? Let's just say, her empire wasn't as strong as she thought. With every passing day, I dug deeper into the HOA handbook. Page after page of bureaucratic nonsense, crafted not for harmony, but for control. Then I found it, a loophole. A tiny, overlooked clause buried in legal jargon, like a crack in the armor. It stated that any rule or fine issued without unanimous board approval could be challenged and overturned. Guess who never got unanimous approval? Kerren. That one detail changed everything. I began gathering evidence. I interviewed neighbors, collected letters, snapped photos of infractions she ignored for her friends. I even managed to find old meeting records that proved Kerren had been acting on her own authority for years. Meanwhile, the fines kept coming. One day it was $2,000 for non-conforming visual elements. Another, $5,000 for failure to respect neighborhood harmony. I kept every letter. I documented everything. Then I filed a formal dispute with the State Housing Board. Kerren was about to meet the one thing she couldn't bully, the law. Kerren, the self-declared queen of the HOA, slapped me with a jaw-dropping $110,000 fine. For what, you ask? Curtains. Yes, you heard me right. Curtains. This woman had built a miniature empire of fear in the neighborhood, intimidating anyone who dared to step out of her ridiculous standards. But what she didn't count on was me discovering a loophole that would dismantle her tiny suburban throne. And when karma finally showed up in court, oh, it was delicious. All I wanted was some peace. A simple, quiet life. A fresh chapter. I had just bought my dream house in the suburbs, birds chirping, friendly nods from strangers, manicured lawns. It felt like a postcard. That is, until she appeared. Kerren, chairwoman of the HOA. And the very embodiment of every horror story you've ever heard about neighborhood associations. Imagine a woman in her mid-40s, with a bob cut so sharp it could slice steel, a Starbucks cup permanently fused to her hand, and a scowl so fixed it could curdle milk. She showed up the day I moved in, while I was unpacking boxes in my driveway, like some ghost of suburban oppression. "Excuse me," she snapped, each syllable crisp and cold, like she'd been training in the art of passive-aggressive warfare. I turned, caught off guard but trying to stay pleasant. "Yes? Can I help you?" Her gaze locked onto my house like a heat-seeking missile. "Those curtains in your window," she said slowly, like the words were physically painful to say. "They're not in alignment with the neighborhood's visual standards." I blinked. Curtains? I had hung some modest white curtains with a faint gray pattern, nothing flashy. Not skulls, not neon green, not even polka dots. Just curtains. "I'm sorry, are they a problem?" I asked, genuinely confused. "Oh, they absolutely are," she hissed, like I'd committed a felony. "We have strict visual harmony guidelines." Harmony? She was acting like my curtains were about to cause mass hysteria on the street. Still, I smiled. "Thanks for the heads up. I'll look into the guidelines." I thought that would be it. Oh, how wrong I was. A week later, a letter arrived, stamped by the HOA and signed, of course, by Kerren. It outlined how my curtains violated Section 8.4 of the Visual Aesthetics Handbook. I had 14 days to comply or face penalties. At first I laughed. This had to be a joke. But then the fines started rolling in. First $100. Then $250. Then, one day, a certified letter arrived. A $10,000 fine. For visual disharmony. Yes, $10,000. For curtains. I was livid. My blood was practically boiling. Who did she think she was? This was my house. My space. And now she was treating it like her personal canvas? This wasn't just about fabric anymore. It was war. I tried to handle it like an adult. I picked up the phone and called Kerren. Maybe it was all a misunderstanding. Maybe we could talk it out, neighbor to neighbor. She answered with a voice dipped in ice. "Yes, this is Kerren.